Kia ora no tātou katoa. E tuana i runga ngā tīmata kōrero ko te wehi ki a ihoa, ko ia te tīmatanga, ko ia no te whakamutunga o ngā mea katoa. Ko Putawaki te maunga, ko Rangitai ki te awa, ko Ngāti awa te iwi, ko Mātātua te waka, ko George Ngatai tōku ingoa. Kia ora everybody. It's a privilege for both myself, Dr. Lorna Dyall and Raewyn Bhana to actually be here all the way from New Zealand to actually celebrate our 4th participation in such a conference. I've actually drawn the short straw to present today, and of course the team has actually put together this presentation in terms of hikoi and chaos. And hikoi means the walk. The introduction that I gave is an introduction that we actually practice as Māori in New Zealand. We introduce ourselves identifying our mountain, which is Putawaki, our river, which is Rangitaiki, our tribe, which is Ngāti Awa, and that there associates ourselves with the whenua, the land, and of course identifies whanaungatanga or relationships with other tribes across Aotearoa, New Zealand. The Whānau Ora Community Clinic is an organisation which both Raewyn, myself and Lorna have been part of for over a decade. We started off establishing a medical practice that delivered services, of course, to Māori, Indigenous people of New Zealand, focusing on Pacific, the second most isolated community groups across New Zealand, and of course all of Aotearoa. In 2019 was a very challenging time for many people and Indigenous people across the world. For Māori, that was the introduction of COVID. And of course, whilst we saw the challenges that were happening across the world, we also feared that this pandemic would eventually come to New Zealand and isolate us as a people in Aotearoa, New Zealand itself. I remember a discussion that Dr. Lorna Dyall had given to us at the end of December 2019 and says, George, we need to actually start organising ourselves because New Zealand is going to go into lockdown. We had to prepare ourselves as a people, Māori, to ensure that we had the supports and the services to be able to manage such a pandemic which all of us actually experienced over that period of time. Lorna had watched what was going on across the world. And as Māori, similar to what happened in the early 1900s when the pandemic or the flu came to our country, it killed many of our Māori people in the early 1900s. In fact, to a point that we were nearly isolated from New Zealand itself. And of course, as a culture, we would have been extinct. So therefore, preparation for us as a people was very vital, and Lorna played a key part within our organisation and on behalf of our people to prepare us for that. She got us from an infrastructure ready for what was about to come and ensured that the delivery of our services were culturally appropriate, enabled our practices and our rituals to continue in a service that was non-Māori and of course, Indigenous. However, what we needed to actually do over that time was become a leader and not a follower. This pandemic affected many of our Indigenous people across the country, and so therefore, as Māori, we wanted to make sure that we were at the forefront of this pandemic and delivered it in a way that was culturally appropriate to our people. We wanted to make sure that we were resilient enough to be able to withstand the challenges that we all knew was not about to happen. And our country in February of 2020 went into lockdown and created mayhem not only for our whānau, our families, our hapu, our extended families, but also our iwi, our tribes, to actually work in isolation. We are a people that grow on people around us. Our whānau, our families, our hapu and iwi rely on each other to survive as a people. And this pandemic, of course, challenged us because we had to live in our own homes and not engage with the many tribes that we were always actually having to engage with on a regular basis. However, we rose up and we took this challenge by the hand. We actually created the very first Indigenous testing and vaccination service in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I remember our clinical director actually saying to us, "George, COVID kills people." They saw that across the world, and they said if we actually got involved in this, then this would actually create challenges for us as a people. My response to him was, "Dr. Tangri, find out how this does not kill our people, and that we provide a service that ensured that karakia, prayers, that mihi, welcome, that whanaungatanga relationships enabled us to deliver our services appropriately for our people. Otherwise, we would have had to use a mainstream service that was very foreign to our people as Māori." So we did actually create our own testing station, our own vaccination station, and we did that using our people, our doctors, our nurses, our healthcare specialists that were within our own culture appropriate for the delivery of service. Because we were a minority within that, we also had to actually look at other cultures that supported our delivery of service. We had over 300 staff involved in our organisation delivering this service to not only Māori, not only Pacific, but also to many other New Zealanders across the country. In fact, over a 3-year period, we had tested and vaccinated well over 1.5 million people who experienced our rituals when they came to our service within Auckland and across New Zealand. Sustainability was the key for us. We had to make sure that our culture was actually intact. We had to make sure that our customs were going to actually live on if we had believed what was being written in the media was going to actually affect our people. The the government within Aotearoa, New Zealand supported our delivery of service. And I think as Māori, we were very, very fortunate to be able to continue delivering a service that was culturally sensitive and culturally appropriate to our people of New Zealand. We had to recognise that because we were of Māori descent, many things that were actually focused on our people were always actually considered by mainstream as not appropriate, inexperienced, and of course challenged by the way that we actually delivered our services to our people. Our response to the government and the different agencies was, we know how to work with our people, we know how they respond to different services, and we know the customs and culture and values that we needed to actually incorporate in the delivery of this foreign service known as the COVID pandemic. So therefore, we actually did that through our customs, our ways of doing things, and of course, our prayers that our whānau, hapu and iwi tribes were actually used to receiving when they went on to our marae, our cultural centres. And that allowed us to actually empower ourselves to be able to deliver a service which was very foreign to our people across Aotearoa. We have a saying in our country, if it's good for Māori, it's good for our country. And so therefore we utilised that saying to incorporate a service to deliver not only for our people, but for the people of New Zealand. And of course that was appropriate for us to continue delivering there. Now, in terms of sustainability, there was, across the world, billions of dollars invested into the delivery of COVID services. We took that opportunity and turned it into a delivery of service that allowed us to continue service delivery once COVID left our shores. So therefore, we had to not only test, vaccinate, but we also had to feed many of our families who had to isolate over that 2-year period. The government had funded Māori to actually purchase food and support to be able to give to our people in our communities. We had to purchase this food from mainstream supermarkets that were operating in our country. My response to that was, if we actually did that on mainstream supermarkets, why on earth couldn't we actually do that ourselves? So therefore, we looked at purchasing our own supermarket as a collective to be able to deliver this food at 30% less than what we had to actually deliver. Another thing that was actually challenged was only healthcare services were able to deliver services and open their doors for their people. So therefore, banks and other facilities had to lock down. Our response to the government was, our people live week to week, so therefore their bank cards that they lost were not actually appropriate for the fact that they had to wait 3 weeks to receive their new bank cards as a service delivery to purchase food. The government or the bank actually said to us, the only way you can do that, George, is to actually look at purchasing a bank or a facility that allowed you to do that. So therefore, we actually went back to the government and says, well, how do we actually do that and how much does it cost? They actually said it costs X amount of millions of dollars and therefore we needed to actually pay that. Again, as an organisation, we said to them, is there an affordable bank that we could look at? And it just so happened that the Prime Minister's national bank, Kiwi Bank, was actually about to close, and therefore we looked at buying that because you cannot have a bank that's run by the government closing in the backyard of our Prime Minister. We ended up not only buying that bank, but also 3 other banks across Aotearoa, New Zealand, to deliver appropriate services to Māori and, of course, the rest of the people of New Zealand. The other opportunity for us in terms of sustainability was to look at community services, and of course this was actually done via our investment in other businesses that supported the delivery to Māori, to Pacific and to New Zealand itself. Our focus has always been on what's best for our people, and we said whatever's best for Māori is best for all of New Zealand. So we tailored our services on whānau, and we recognised this as being very important, and that was actually something that was successful for us as an organisation. Our kaumātua and queer, our elders, were also very important, and they, of course, were as frightened as you were because they never went out of their houses. So we had whānau staff that went and visited every kaumātua across the nation to give them services. I think in closing, this is where we actually went to moving forward. 2024 is going to be an important part for our delivery of service for our people. We want to continue to deliver our rituals, our values for the benefit of our people. Manaakitanga is something that we actually provided not only to Māori, but to all those that actually visited our organisation in terms of welcoming. Kaitiakitanga, whanaungatanga, wairuatanga, and of course the most important to us was tino rangatiratanga, or self-determination, for our tribe, for our whānau, our family, and of course for our extended family. Thank you very much for this opportunity in terms of creating sustainability. This has actually been an opportunity for us to show that we as Māori can actually run what's perceived to be a mainstream service for the benefit of our people and for the benefit of New Zealand. It's all about unity, it's all about oneness, and it's all about whānau, hapu, and iwi. That's family, extended family, and tribes. Huri noa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.